Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on the ruins of Enduil, playing as the Greenskins against the Brettonians, and we have come in with a bit of a crazy comp. So I decided to go with something a little alternative for Greenskins. Still some classic choices can be seen. I did bring Wordstag, I still brought a Nasty Skulkers, I did bring Ragnarok Queen, but normally when I do this matchup I go very wide on infantry. I usually bring a bunch, well, maybe not necessarily wide, but I go much heavier on infantry. I'll bring a lot of Savage Orc Big Guns, I'll back them up with some Air Boys, and my backline coverage is generally pretty weak. Maybe not terrible, but I generally don't have that many peripheral or supporting units. I usually rely on that infantry contingent to see me through, but I decided to go here with a bit more of a cav-heavy comp and see if I could take Brettonians on in a more cav-on-cav style. Now, certainly I don't expect to be beating up on Grail Knights with just a unit of Orc Boar Big Guns, but that's why we've got plenty of support. I did bring Wordstag here. Quickly going over the build, I did decide to bring Wordstag. Of course, he's got Foot of Gork to nuke enemy high-value targets. Great in this matchup where there's a lot of high-value targets usually. Here we go. Fists of Gork, Bonewood Staff, and Swiggly Beast, as well as, of course, Wa, Effigy the Git, and Get Back here. Of course, he does have Wordstag's Revenge and Warpaint of Wordstag. I do find Wordstag's Revenge can be pretty useful here, especially because you'll often see, well, you almost always see a Caster Lord. You'll very often see Fan Enchantress. Backing him up, we do have the Ragnarok Queen, of course, who can spam her Spiderlings to disrupt enemy backlines, be a pain in the rear, and just be a general nuisance. And of course, she's very tough for the Brettonians to take down, with very good armor, very solid melee stats, AP, very high attack speed, great mobility. 57 speed, that doesn't look that good, but factor in the Strider, and you've got a very solid, very mobile, and very nasty unit to try to take down. For the front line, it is pretty cheap. 2 Savage Orcs is definitely not going to be winning any beauty contest, but we have brought something a little experimental here, and that is the Crimson Killers. I really wanted to give these guys a try, and I wasn't getting any good matchups to give these guys a try, and finally I was sick of looking for a perfect matchup. I'm like, screw it, we're going to use them against Brettonia, and so we brought Crimson Killers. I wanted to try them out. These guys are basically just Black Orcs with 2,000 less HP, 25% less models, or 15 less models, and a splash attacks. So they are supposed to do a lot better against infantry, but they are much squishier and obviously more expensive because they are 9 veterancy. 2 Goblin Wolf Riders on either end, one of which is the Moonhowlers to provide some fear, of course, great against Brettonia, as well as to provide some shutdown against Mounted Yeomen, some counter harass. 2 Nasty Skulkers, one on either end, to provide the snares, as well as some additional AP support. In the back here, Broken Tusk Mob, as well as 2 units of Orc Boar Big Guns here on the periphery. And these guys, I figured, you know, they'll trade fairly cost efficiently with Brettonian Cav. So definitely that's my hope. Now my opponent caught me a little bit out here with this build, going very heavy on infantry, which is not necessarily something I'd recommend against the Greenskins, just because they have such a potent attack force. They can shock and awe you so heavily with infantry, but I didn't go shock and awe heavy with infantry here, so it kind of works out for my opponent. On the periphery, he does have some Mounted Yeomen who are not going to have very good targets here, because I didn't bring archers. I didn't really bring harass, so yeah, they're kind of useless. Just like, for example, these peasant mobs might be a little, well, we'll see. The peasant mobs will probably hold up. But he did bring some cav. He still does have the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis. He's got some Grail Knights. He does have the Knights Errant over here, so some fairly cheap cavalry options, except for the Grail Knights, of course. But the terrifying Green Knight is here in the woods, and he has come in with all of his abilities. He does have the Sacred Guardian, as well as the Dolorous Blade, which grants him ridiculously strong melee stats and really makes him a pretty potent force. And of course, Greenskins do not have many sources of magic damage. Wordstag has Effigy the Git, and Fists of Gork, which I think are a mandatory pick in this matchup, just for that. Otherwise, you'd have to bring Azag or hope for, say, magic missiles to hit him. But that's not, or just wear him down. But otherwise, he's definitely a very tough nut to crack for the Greenskins. For the rest of my opponent's build, some Foot Squires, the Holy Wardens of Lamai Suntal, more Foot Squires, quite a few Bowmen, all with Pox Arrows. This is something, or actually 2 with Pox Arrows, 1 without. It's something I often see people do, and something I often say don't bother with. Don't bother with multiple Pox Arrows. It's usually not worth it. You can make it work, but I think you're generally better off bringing an extra unit of, say, Fire Arrows. If you're going to go invest more, might as well bring Fire Arrows. And finally, in the back, we do have a handful of Spears to cover these guys. And Fan Enchantress, of course, who is already riding in with her Earthblood with Regrowth. Awakening of the Wood, Chalice of Potions, and all that stuff, though surprisingly no Mist of the Lady, and this is an interesting choice to not bring Mortis Engine effect. I'm not entirely sure why my opponent chose to do that, but no Mortis Engine, so we don't have to worry about that. That said, Wardsag is diving straight into the fray here. My opponent is going to countercharge with the Grail Guardians, with the Fey Enchanters, immediately really nuking down Wardsag. Wardsag doesn't have the best melee defense, and Fey isn't a total pushover in melee. She's not great, but not terrible either. But we are going to get some pretty nasty Foot of Gorg action pretty shortly. You can't see my opponent here. He does dive in. Grail Knight's being hit by an Earthblood. All these troops, suddenly down goes the effigy of the Git. And we all know what's coming now. You can see my opponent's troops here getting distracted by Spiderlings. And the mighty Gork does stomp down on these knights, sending them flying, sending them staggering. And the Holy Wardens are completely nuked. The Grail Knights are basically gone, down to 13 models, and just in full retreat. They've essentially lost the vast majority of their army in seconds. Elsewhere, with the Wall going down, all these troops are suddenly scything through their foes. The Savage are just tearing through these foot squires. Wardsag in full retreat from my opponent's Green Knight, as well as from the Fey Enchantress. A bit of a missed Comet of Cassadora here, going down on the Crimson Killers, but they're so dispersed that it's really not having too much of an effect. And in the meantime, the Arachnarch Queen is just diving straight through the front line in support of our Spritelings to disrupt these supposed bowmen. Over here, the Nasty Skulkers are going to dive in on the flank against these troops, just whittling them down, but unfortunately, a bit of a misplay here on my part. With Wardsag, I didn't really cast magic damage on these guys. I definitely should have been doing that. I do believe I already had the Winds of Magic for it. But we are going to get some casting going somewhere. There we go, finally. Fist of Gork going down. We are going to start cutting through the Green Knight relatively quickly. These guys do have respective melee stats. 82 with the buff. And suddenly the Green Knight is not having a good time, so definitely some good work being done. But my opponent, very astute, sees that Wardsag is in trouble and is going to pursue him. So I'm going to try to flee. Wardsag, the Hog Lord Baconator here, fleeing for dear life. In the meantime, looking elsewhere for a sort of overarching look, you can see the Crimson Killers just scything through this infantry, but a lot of it's just trash and chaff. So perhaps not the most cost efficient. Over here, the Moonhowlers are going to pursue the Grail Knights off the field because I don't even want a single Grail Knight coming back. Well, over here, the Knights Errant, I'm not even entirely sure what they were doing. They were kind of wasting their time chasing my Savage Rogues off the field. Which does mean that elsewhere we're doing rather well. Over here, the Orc Board by Big Guns able to circle around. Nasty Skulkers here disrupting. A Smoke Bomb going down, trying to save Wardsag oh so desperately, but in comes the Defenders of the Fluid Elite. There's just too much stuff here. These Orc Board by Big Guns are way out of position. My opponent is able to get the Fey Enchantress in there. Wardsag, for those of you who don't know, has terrible melee defense of 25, and this is spelling disaster. You can see Wardsag down to 200 HP. He goes down like a 9-pin. And suddenly the balance of power is actually staying stable, which is really shocking, but things are looking very grim for the Greenskins. At this point, my opponent still has healing. I've lost all of my access to magic. I've lost all of my access to magic damage. Of course, I still had a lot of points of magic because I haven't really been casting that much this game. And my opponent still does have Fey Enchantress, who I can't catch, and he still does have the Green Knight, of course, who is just a beast, and we have no more magic damage to kill him. Unfortunately, though, for my opponent, the Crimson Killers are in the fray, and they're definitely bunkering down over here, anchoring the front. Let's look at these handsome lads just scything through. Oh well, that wasn't that handsome. He tried his best. You can see he's just swinging, just hacking and slashing. These peasants, clowns, just not able to stand up to him. This mighty mob of orcs. You can see up to 130 kills, and just chopping through these Knights Errant, chopping through those trashy infantry. And the Crimson Killers definitely saving the day a little bit here by anchoring the line and kind of baiting my opponent away, because my opponent perhaps could have forced some terror routing over here, had he been more focused over there, but instead he focuses everything here on these Crimson Killers, who are chopping through lower end infantry, not really doing necessarily the most necessary work. And while he's so focused over there, our Wolf Riders are able to dive in. They're able to do a lot of work over here. Our Nasty Skulkers are going to be able to dive in on these Defenders of the Fluid Elite. You can see the Orc Board by Big Guns. They're doing immense work, and down goes the Smoke Bomb, dragging these guys into the fight. So they're in a terrible position. They obviously don't have the best melee defense either, 36, and they are getting chopped down, so definitely not having a good time of it. Elsewhere, Savage Orcs and Nasty Skulkers continue to rally, continue to come back into the fray. The Arachnarch Queen, of course, an absolute anchor, a hero of the people, just holding her own here with the backing of some Orc Board with Big Guns, diving through these troops. You can see those orcs just riding around, riding on those hogs. And she's really stomping on these guys. Just look at that. Look at this beauty. Look at this beautiful little spider. But those foot squires are not having a good day. And you can see the Crimson Killers here doing a really good job. This was something that shocked me, just how well they held. Now, granted, they're a high veterancy unit. They're better than Black Orcs in most respects, except for that tremendously lower HP, but they really are holding to the bitter end here. They've got over almost 200 kills. They've been cutting through these foot squires, which is actually rather important because a lot of these units, while certainly perhaps not the most amazing, could potentially still play a role there. My opponent, Nasty Skulkers, are not going to hold that well in the long run. All those units are definitely going to be kind of brutalizing. So the Crimson Killers are going to rout here on 11 models, but they've got almost no HP left, so it's not really the end of the world. And they held up for so long. They were able to dispatch most of these foot squires, most of these holy wardens. Because of that, we were able to really mop up, because of their brave sacrifice, we were able to mop up this entire flank, and we still have quite a presence on the battlefield. And you can see the balance of power actually worming its way in my favor, which is rather surprising given that both the Green Knight and the Fae are still around and kicking, probably with a good amount of points of magic. That said, there's definitely quite a bit of a rallying going on here for the Brettonians. Peasant bows coming back, and unfortunately, I don't really have all too many backline harass tools anymore. The Ragnarok Queen can of course summon spiderlings. The boar boys are technically a cav, but they're kind of slow. Boar boys are a very. I'm not the biggest fan of them in general. I wanted to try them out here, but their low mobility is definitely a bit of a killer. But here, the Crimson Killers, the last 3 boys, running for dear life, or reading, or maybe staging a strategic withdrawal. We are going to land a smoke bomb here on the Knights Errant, and the smoke bombs from the Nasty Skulkers have just been MVPs this game. Tagging these Knights Errant, dragging them into the muck, the board whipping is charging in up to 100 kills, and just scything these junior Knights down. They really do not stand a chance. In comes the Spider, looking hungry, and chomp chomp, down goes the Knight. The Ragnarok Queen definitely doing her people proud here, just munching through these troops. And you know, we're doing okay. We get a bit of a summon here of Spider Hatchlings, which is mucking up these troops. It's very important. The Spider Hatchlings, like, I don't have the ability here to summon them close enough, I think, with Peasant Boast, where they would be able to reach them in time. So we're kind of summoning them on all these smaller backline troops, or on these smaller, or on the backlines of these enemy troops, able to get rear charges, able to get some rear damage in, and the Ragnarok Queen is just able to take advantage of the zoning to pile through and go after the Fae Enchantress. Now the Green Knight here, you can see, has gotten healed up quite a bit, which is definitely a bit of a problem for me. But elsewhere we are winning. We're going to be able to drag down these Yeomen. We're going to be able to surround the Fae Enchantress, who has actually hit her healing cap, and start munching on her a little bit. And she obviously does not want to be here. This is not where you want to be in life as a Fae Enchantress. Fighting a giant spider. I'm sorry, but the Lady of the Lake is not going to protect you against getting chomped on. And so you can see the another 300 damage down on the Fae Enchantress, and she's forced to flee. Once again, taking an overarching look, you can see the Spider Hatchlings here being used to pursue these foot squires. They're probably not going to be able to pursue them off the map. They're probably going to run out of HP before then. But they still do a lot of damage, and they're kind of whittling them down. The Crimson Killers actually stage a comeback. Basically, they're basically a full unit. They've still got 3 models. I'm not even sure where the 3rd model is, to be quite honest, because there's only 2 of them here. But they're coming back in against the Green Knight. They're immune to psychology, so they're not going to get terror out. They're going to start chopping into this guy. You can see he's going mano-a-mano on him. He's going to 1v1, but he is unfortunately not quite going to be able to hold up, I don't think, despite his very best efforts. As you can see, already has some damage here on the Green Knight. Yeah, look at that, MVPs, these black... Oh, there's the 3rd one. He's over there. There's 3 of them. I was wondering where the last one was. But the Green Knight definitely getting chomped on. Definitely good for us. We're able to sort of start getting rid of the Green Knight, start whittling him down. And by and large, we've kind of broken my opponent's army, except some of these remaining anchor troops. Now, a bit of mismicro here on my opponent's part. The Fae Enchantress is an absolutely brutal force on the battlefield. Even this battle whittled down, even without her Favor of the Fae, or without the Mist of the Lady, which my opponent didn't bring either here, which is definitely, I think, a bit of a mistake. She could still be an absolute force, just able to heal all these troops. There's still a lot of troops on the field. Heal the Green Knight, provide him with buffs, all that sort of stuff. But we do actually manage to snare her here, surround her with the big guns, and she's going to go down like a 9-pin to these very angry hogs, and she's not having a good time, and she actually gets dragged off her unicorn. Poor Sylvaron going down, even as the archers were wailing on them. And with that slaying of the enemy lord, suddenly the tide is turning, the tide is getting even, and the Brettonian army is going to start routing. Now, what I thought here for a second was that my opponent's army completely shattered, but that is not the case. Some of these troops are going to start rallying, or still stick around. You can see the balance of power all is swinging pretty decisively in my opponent, or in my favor now. You know, my opponent can still rally some troops, and he still does have the Green Knight, who we're trying to harass here, but you know, those stats are not bad. It's still 48 melee defense, it's still 75% physical resist, and of course he can heal. So my opponent here, a pretty clever play. The Green Knight has this cool little ability called the Sacred Guardian, I do believe, and that gives him HP regen in woods. So my opponent, figuring this is sort of his last-ditch chance, his last shot at winning this, he's pulling the Green Knight back into the woods, where he will be getting a steady source of regen. He obviously could possibly kite me, I don't know. He's getting slowed by the spider every now and then, so it might be pretty difficult to escape, but the Green Knight here is going to tear out some of my poor boys, which kind of sucks, but he is able to get into the woods. He's going to be able to start healing. He's going to start getting that Sacred Guardian effect. You can see it's kind of rocked down here. He has reached the healing cap, but he's still got a lot of regenning to do. And he's going to start slaying out with the Arachnarch Queen, which could get a little hairy, because the Arachnarch Queen, while a very good melee combatant, obviously doesn't have magic damage. And, the Green Knight does have AP, so he's going to bypass that crazy armor. We do manage to force my opponent out of the woods a little bit here, but he is going to pivot around and come back, while elsewhere the nasty Skulkers here are mopping up these Foot Squires, chasing them off the field. The last two guys over here just shattered and getting pursued by a bunch of angry Gobos with their prison shanks. The last Foot Squire here, running for dear life. We allow him to flee so that he can tell his friends of what befell him here and just how badly they got mauled. But elsewhere here in the woods, it's just going to become a bit of a drawn-out engagement. The Green Knight is regenning, and of course he's very hard to hit and kill and do anything to, so it's going to take a while, and we're going to fast forward. My board boys repeatedly rout, but the Arachnarch Queen, obviously with fear and terror, is not going to rout. She's going to stick around to the bitter end. And as my board boys are going to rout off here, which is, there is one little thing I did want to show, and this was definitely rather brutal for my opponent, and made me feel a little bad here. Because you can see the Green Knight definitely getting mauled, definitely not having a great time of it. But suddenly, now it's a fight 1v1 as the board boys rout off. They're terror outed. My opponent has essentially reduced this to just his knight against the Arachnarch Queen. But if we watch this fight, you can see the Arachnarch Queen dives in. She staggers the Green Knight, and he's not able to get a counterattack. She dives in, and she's going to get another attack here. Once again, staggering the knight. Board boys come in, they're going to stagger. So the knight's essentially getting perma-staggered. He's not able to recover. He's not able to punch back, really. And he's slowly but surely getting munched through. And his HP's running out. He's running out of regen. He's getting staggered by the Arachnarch Queen, and he's not able to land a hit. He's not even able to attack because the Arachnarch Queen keeps staggering. And I think that's definitely a little unfortunate for him. Definitely a little sad to see. The Guardian of Brettonia is just going to get knocked around or staggered out by a big old spider. He eventually even gets pushed out of the woods here. He's down to 100 HP at this point. We're saying our GGs, and with that, the Green Knight is going to fall here, sent toppling over by one of the board boys, in fact. So a very tight match with the Prisoner of Warhammer here. We did a series of, I did post I think one of our ridiculous randomly generated matches up earlier, which was a lot of fun. We played those after this game actually, but yeah, it was a lot. It was a very fun match. I think if I were to have any, definitely some critique on the build here. I don't think you want to go heavy on infantry against Greenskins as Brettonia. You don't really want to go heavy on infantry against Greenskins as just about anybody, unless you're a faction that has some sort of ability that denies wall. So whether that be Grandpa Katep or Alariel, or with Arcane Forging, or Dinos bringing in Arcane Forging, or who else do we have? I'm trying to think who else is there. I'm not actually able to think. Yeah, there's like Malekith with the with his sword and all that sort of stuff. So you want to be aware of that, but otherwise, I just don't think you want to engage in the infantry fight. Another criticism, if you're going to bring the Fanchantress, and she's a great pick, so don't get me wrong, a great pick, definitely well worth bringing. Make sure to bring Mist of the Lady and probably Favor of the Fae. They're both fairly cheap abilities, and they're incredibly potent. They're essentially what makes the Fanchantress. Without those two, she's kind of just a Lore of Life caster. You might as well bring a Enchantress at that point, or a Prophetess, sorry. As for this build, definitely some mess micro there on my part with Wurtzag. We got a glorious Foot of Gork though initially, which really nuked those Grail Knights and put them in their place. The Nasties, all in all, the build performed rather well. I was actually surprised. I wouldn't recommend the build if that's what you guys are wondering. I don't think it's particularly good. I just wanted to try out some ridiculous stuff, and I was really ticked off that I couldn't get a good match for the Crimson Killer, so I wanted to try them out. You can see almost 200 kills, definitely doing their country proud. They're a good unit. I want to get a better matchup with them, and it's a little difficult to get the matchups you want. Orc Boar Big Guns, you can see, racked up quite a lot of kills, doing pretty good. The Arachnarch Queen, over 100 kills, so obviously she carried the game, essentially. Without the Arachnarch Queen, I would have probably lost this game the moment where Zach died. The fear and terror from the arena was just too much, and would have been too much. If I had spent these 2k plus points On anything else, I would have probably just lost the game, I think, when Wurtzag got sniped. But regardless, very well played to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining and fun to watch. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below to keep up with additional content. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions of your own, be sure to put them down below, and I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. As usual, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.